Hi guys, thanks for coming to our red carpet premiere launch party for On a Ring and a Prayer. I'm author Sandra D and I've been asked to do a brief reading from the new book. It's the first in a 3-book series based on Jessie Hart Stanton. I hope you'll enjoy it and her, and have a wonderful time tonight. The sun had only begun to peek its big head out over the top of the pastel horizon, but the surf had called Danny's name early that day. He'd managed to step into the bottom of the wetsuit, letting the top of it hang down around his waist as he tucked Carmen, the name he'd given his surfboard, under one arm and trekked across the sand bare-chested. The waves looked inviting, full of the come-hither allure only the morning swells of the blue Pacific could muster in him. He pounded 3 times on the side panel of the battered Volkswagen bus parked at the edge of the sand, before proceeding toward the beckoning surf. Danny spread out his Zuma J beach towel and dropped Carmen onto it, face upward. Squatting down to inspect her, he tugged at the leash to make sure the connection to the plug felt secure. He ran his hand down the length of the leash to check for frays, knots, or tears. Reasonably confident, he flipped her over to scrutinize the fin box. The screws looked tight, nothing loose or broken. He stood upright and slid his arms into the sleeve of the wetsuit and zipped it as he stepped out of the blue flip-flops. He dropped to the sand and folded his legs into a sort of lotus position. Inhaling deeply, he closed his eyes and tilted his head back slightly. Man, I love mornings out here. Before he had even a chance to exhale, however, the clamor of Riggs's approach sent all thoughts of quiet meditation upward into a puff of steam. "You're early, man," Riggs grumbled as he stalked across the sand. He dropped his bright orange board next to Danny and flopped down onto it. "I haven't even had my coffee. What's with the crack of dawn?" "Sorry, I just wanted to get an early jump." "Well, what are you sitting here for, then?" The corner of Danny's mouth quirked as he leaned back and looked at his disheveled friend. Short, curly, dark hair, dusky, light brown skin, cropped black beard. Riggs wore his multi-ethnicity like a permanent tattoo. "I was waiting on you," he said, pointing out the obvious. "Well, here I am. We gonna get wet or what?" He chuckled. Yeah, let's get wet." Riggs trailed Danny into the water, letting out a shriek as his stomach hit the cold board. They paddled over fairly meager waves, typical to the Santa Monica area north of the pier at this time of year. Heavy winds the night before had at least pumped the swell a couple of feet, so the morning wasn't a complete bust. With an exchange of nods, they let the first wave pass them by. "I heard Mavericks is prime right now," Riggs called out as they waited to catch the next one. "You want to make a run up there this weekend?" "Don't you have Allie this weekend?" "She'll go with us." He and Riggs hadn't made it to Mavericks all year. Truth told, the idea really appealed to Danny. It wasn't like he had any hot cases to keep him rooted in town, but the odds were mounted high against Riggs's 12-year-old daughter's mother signing off on a 6-hour drive just to scout out better waves for the weekend. "This one looks pretty good," Riggs called out, and Danny checked it out before giving him the nod. "Let's try her." Everything else tumbled from his thoughts as Danny paddled forward, positioning himself positively for the half-built swell. He made a clean entry into the wave, creating enough momentum and speed to set up the ride, then popped up to his feet. He glanced over at Riggs just in time to see his board purl, its nose digging down into the water. Riggs groaned as he wiped out into it, leaving Danny to finish out the ride alone. Wiping out into a 2-foot wave, he made a mental note against ever dragging a pre-coffee Riggs into the water again. He just started to consider turning back into the surf for a second go of his own, when distant, familiar barking called his attention to the shore. Sure enough, 120 pounds of Harlequin Great Dane stood in the sand, his pointed, cropped ears erect, and his deep-throated barks cutting straight across the water. Danny dragged his board by the leash, trudging to the shore. "What's up, Frank? What's all the racket?" Frank pounded the sand with his front paw as Danny approached, his typical move when he had something urgent to share. Shielding his eyes from the sun with one hand, Danny spotted the car parked next to Riggs's bus. "What's a jag doing parked at our place, boy?" he asked the dog. "Hey, what's up with Frankenstein?" Riggs asked as he plodded out of the water. "Looks like I've got company." Danny picked up his beach towel and followed Frank, calling out to Riggs over his shoulder. "Be back in a few." "Nah, I'm headed in too," he replied. "I need a shower and some Joe." Danny knew he didn't have much of a choice in the matter. Ever since he'd agreed to let his friend park in his driveway, Riggs had slowly infiltrated until he'd become as much a part of Danny's home base as the leaky faucet in the kitchen. Frank rushed to the passenger window of the white Jaguar and pealed out a tirade of objections to its presence. From beneath the bass drum of his barking, soprano screams hit pitches he hadn't thought possible. "Frank, back!" He dropped his towel and leaned Carmen against the patio post before making his way toward the car. "Frank," he repeated, "get back, now!" The dog reluctantly retreated, circling around Danny and standing behind him like a ready and waiting soldier, a white one with giant black spots. He leaned down and peered into the car. His heart bumped a little as a gorgeous brunette with wide, glistening eyes looked back at him. Through the closed window, he thought he heard a muffled version of his name. "What? I can't hear you." She lowered the window by no more than an inch. "Mr. Callahan? Is she looking for my father?" "I'm Danny Callahan. Who are you?" The driver leaned across the blue-eyed beauty and spoke to the opening in the window. Her very short, streaked hair framed sharper features than her friend's. "I'm Piper Brunetti, Mr. Callahan. I got your name from Vicky Washington." The name skimmed his brain before coming back around for a landing. Cheating husband, he'd provided her with visual art to support a hefty divorce settlement the previous spring. "What can I do for you, Miss Brunetti?" "This is my friend, Jessie Stanton." Weepy gray-blue eyes glittered at him, and when she forced an unconvincing smile to her apple cheeks, dimples caved in at the base of them. "She has a situation with her husband." He looked back as huge tear droplets escaped her wide eyes, momentarily waylaid by the dimples before cascading from her chin. "I need to get out of this wetsuit," he told them. "Why don't you come inside?" Both women's attention darted toward Frank, and the crier with the apple cheeks and heart-shaped face shook her head defiantly. No." "Oh, he's harmless," he reassured them both, "just noisy." Neither one of them seemed to believe him. "All right," he said with a shrug, "but I'm going inside. If you want to talk to me, you'll need to get out of the car." When he reached the doorway to his small bungalow, he turned back and called out to them. "His name is Frank, and he's already eaten." Danny slapped his thigh, and Frank obediently followed him through the door. A stream of fresh coffee dribbled into the pot on the counter, and Frank sniffed the air beneath it before curling up on the large padded rectangle bearing his name and angled into the corner of the kitchen. Danny followed the sound of the running shower to find, as he suspected, Riggs had discarded his wetsuit and clothes in a heap in the hallway outside the open bathroom door. "Don't come out of there in the buff," he shouted through the door. "Females in the house." "Yeah, okay. At least I think they're coming in," he muttered, as he peeled off his own wetsuit en route to the bedroom.